Hello, hello, hello. Good morning and welcome back to yet another episode of the Unspoken Rules podcast. I am your host, Sebastian, aka Rabbit. I'm here with my wonderful co-host, Montana, aka Wildcard, as well as obviously Mr. Blake Spillers. Good morning to the both of you.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Sebastian.
As usual, we have some interesting topics to discuss and ultimately end with the debate topic of the day. First up, Chauncey Billups has officially agreed to a 5-year deal with a team option that 5th year. Second, obviously, the game last night, big one for the Clippers. Will Ty Lue do it again is the question that I want to ask you guys. We'll get into a little bit later. Third, we're going to discuss just a little bit of our thoughts on that Euro Cup games yesterday. Shockingly, France was eliminated. And how impressive it was for Spain to finish strong after conceding that tragic own goal early. Then we'll be previewing, obviously, the Bucks-Hawks game tonight. Is this series practically over? And we'll get into that as well. And finally, we'll be debating today whether Damian Lillard should stay or demand a trade out of Portland. Now let's get into episode 22. Take it away, Montana.
All right. So the first story of today's show, we have Chauncey Billups becoming the new head coach of the Portland Trail Blazers, signing a 5-year deal. He beat out other candidates like Becky Hammond, I believe, was the other finalist for the Portland Trail Blazers job. So, Sebastian, what are your thoughts on Chauncey Billups becoming the next head coach of the Portland Trail Blazers, and will that be enough to keep Damian Lillard in Portland?
So first of all, I think it's a great sign. Now, one thing to mention though, and I completely forgot about this until just now. Last night they mentioned it on the broadcast of that game that Chauncey Billups was staying, or Ty Lue was staying at Chauncey Billups' house for 7 weeks, doing because Ty Lue and Chauncey have been best friends since high school, and so they worked on a coaching clinic or whatever the case may be, 4 hours plus a day of just sitting in another room for 7 weeks, orchestrating how to get better and improve as a coach, from going through matchups to different type of lineups and whatever the case may be that they addressed. But with that being said, obviously Chauncey's been great when it comes to player development so far, at least in his career. I mean, I guess you really don't have to look at PG and say what is there to really develop, but PG's taken on that role as a point guard, and I feel like what Chauncey has done over there and in that system with the Clippers, I feel like he has a lot of that former player and that former point guard mindset, and all the players are going to love him. And so, I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like the trust factor from coaches to their players will ultimately turn into wins and success because of the heart and passion, the grit and grind, to make your coach happy. So as long as he has that trust factor, I feel like a great comparison would be to how the Heat, not maybe this year, but in the sense of how the Heat were last year with that grit, grind, and they just love Spoelstra. And with the Clippers, obviously this year, we'll obviously get into that a little later. But I just like how Chauncey will hopefully improve and help develop Dame's game. And even more, if they choose to stay with CJ or whatever the case may be, he'll help, isolate those PGs to really improve and get to that next level. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
No, yeah, I'm glad that you brought up what he's done for Paul George, because I think he's done wonders for Paul George this year, and it's really showing in the playoffs. I think, like you said, yes, how much can Paul George really improve his game? Well, he has been known in the playoffs to choke and not play as well, but this playoffs, we're just not seeing that, which is what I think Chauncey Billups deserves some of the credit for what Paul George is doing in this playoffs. And if he's done this much for PG, I have high expectations for what he can do with not only Dame, but like you mentioned, if they keep him, CJ McCollum. I think Dame doesn't need as much help, but I think if Chauncey Billups can come in here and help CJ McCollum out and get him to that next level, then we could see this duo go as far as they want to. Now, the big question mark for the Blazers are, because there's a lot of rumors going around that Dame is unhappy with the front office. So will Dame stay? I think he will. I don't know how he could be upset with them hiring Chauncey Billups. He said that he didn't want to have – I remember Dame said a couple weeks ago that he didn't want to be the main impactor in who they hired, so he can't be mad. And I think that Chauncey Billups can only make the Blazers better. If he can help – I mean, this Clippers team last year looks completely different to what they do this year, and with almost a very similar team. Yes, they're missing a couple players and they added a different few players, but this team is relatively similar to what they were last year, except they had Kawhi all of the playoffs last year, and this year they have been without him for about half of the last series and now all of this series, and it's 3-2 going back to LA in the Western Conference Finals. I mean, I've got to have a hats off to Chauncey Billups, not only him, but also Ty Lue. Like you mentioned, they were staying at each other's house, or Ty Lue was at Chauncey Billups' house. They were grinding for this season, and I think that just shows how dedicated not only Ty Lue is, but also Chauncey Billups, which should be a huge plus and huge factor for maybe Dame staying with the Blazers because of who they hired. Montana.
I believe the point, in my opinion, the point guards or former point guards in the NBA make great head coaches. We see a lot of head coaches in the NBA now were former point guards at one point or another in the NBA. Guys like Steve Kerr, Jason Kidd, Steve Nash, Ty Lue. There's a lot of great precedent to be set before that bodes well for Chauncey Billups as he gets ready to take over as the head coach of the Portland Trail Blazers. Whether or not it helps Damian Lillard, makes and gives Damian Lillard the thought process of, oh, maybe I should stay in Portland, that's a topic for later in the show. I don't know if it necessarily is going to sway him enough. Yes, you can hire a great coach all day, all you want, but it's all about the players you're going to end up having to put around Damian Lillard in order to win the basketball game. In order to win the basketball games, I don't believe Terry Scott was the issue last year or even the years before. I believe it's the personnel around Damian Lillard that has been the culprit for his whole entire career of not even getting into the NBA Finals because they didn't have that superstar level player right next to Damian Lillard that's going to get them to the top. So yeah, Chauncey Billups is a great hire, but in my opinion, there's nothing here that to me is going to whether or not sway Damian Lillard back to Portland, rather him requesting a trade and playing, let's say, for New York or the Clippers or for the Heat, anyone else. So with that being said, let's now move on to the next main topic of today's show, the Los Angeles Clippers. Another gutsy win in Game 5, 116-102. The Suns are still up in this series, 3-2. The Los Angeles Clippers were led by Paul George yesterday, who had 41 points, 13 rebounds, 6 assists. Marcus Morris Sr., who had 13 points in that first quarter, really set the tone for the Clippers going into the game. Had 22 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists. Reggie Jackson, 23 points, 3 assists, 5 rebounds. And the only other double-digit scorer for the Clippers yesterday was a surprise. DeMarcus Cousins had 15 points in 11 minutes. As far as the Phoenix Suns go, Devin Booker had a great game, 31 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. Chris Paul had 22 points, 8 assists, 3 rebounds. Cameron Johnson had 14 points and 4 rebounds. And where did DeAndre Ayton go yesterday? 10 points and 11 rebounds. So, Sebastian, are your Phoenix Suns in trouble here? Clippers, believe, man. Believe. Clippers in 7.
To answer your question with that first statement, no, I don't think the Suns are in trouble. But it's crazy. So obviously we didn't have a podcast yesterday. But I wrote this down in order for the Clippers, for them to win. So I wrote, PG just has to shoot the ball better. I don't think we have seen one good shooting night from PG all series. And then, I have stats here. He was shooting 36% from the field during the first 4 games, 28% from 3, and 70% from the free throw line. In order for them to win these games, he's got to shoot better from the field, as well as obviously the free throw line. And they got to get their production from their supporting cast. As you mentioned, they got 13 in the first quarter from Marcus Morris. Then they had that little spurt with PG in the third where he had 20. And then obviously, ultimately, Reggie Jackson had some great shots, some big shots when the Suns were trying to flip momentum. Reggie Jackson had those 2 back-to-back threes, as well as obviously the transition dunk. So they got their production. I don't think there's really much to talk about in the sense of, anything with the Suns. This is all credit to the Clippers. They played great. They played a well-rounded game, especially with the matchups. Credit to Ty Lue. When the Suns went big, they played small, and what they did is doubled Aiden in the paint with a PG and a wingman. And then when a shot went up, they blocked out Aiden with 2 bigs, or I guess 2 PGs, and he was blocked off. So he couldn't get any rebounds. They played great. They wanted the game clearly, so they were ready to win. So shout out to the Clippers. all I can really say for the Suns is that last night they just didn't want it. Now, I'm not saying D-Book because he did play, he had 31 points. The rest of the cast just didn't seem like they wanted that game. CP going 0 for 6 from the 3. Jay Crowder going 0 for 4. Obviously, Cameron Johnson did what he needed to do. But because like that ankle injury looks like it may be affecting Cameron Payne, who really, out of those first 2 games, clearly, had that fast pace offensively. I think we're seeing that a little bit being slowed down. I don't know if it's the ankle injury or if it's just credit to the Clippers. But there's nothing really I need to say again to criticize the Suns. This is completely all praise, and all the attention needs to go towards the Clippers on that win because, honestly, they played a great game, and they clearly wanted to win that game.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I agree. I mean, the Clippers' top 3 showed up once again in a big way. I mean, like you said, not only did PG go off for 41, but he did so super efficiently, shooting 15 of 20 from the field. And like you said, it's something we haven't seen so far in this series. PG's had good games where he scores 30-plus points, but he hasn't done so efficiently. So him to go out there and shoot 15 of 20 was huge for me, not only in a way because the Clippers won, but it shows that PG himself knows what he needs to do to get the job done. But my boy Reggie did his thing once again with another efficient 23-point game. I mean, he is really helping himself for this offseason in terms of getting paid that bag. He's proving to still be a very solid player that can help any team that needs a guard. Before the playoffs, Reggie Jackson, I thought he was good, but I didn't think he was this good. Now, like Montana said, Cousins played huge minutes. Not only did he only just play 11 minutes, but he made the most of those minutes by scoring 15 points, which really helped keep the Clippers on top for most of the game. This game was super important to the Suns, in my opinion, because even though they were up 3-1, they had a chance to close this series out early and at home. Now they have to go back to LA for a Game 6, and if they lose that, then as we all know, anything can happen in a Game 7. So for me, this was a game that if I were the Suns, this was a game that needed to be won. You need to be able to close the series out at home, especially when you're up 3-1. Because like I said, if they lose in Game 6, anything can happen in a Game 7. Montana?
The Clippers were going into this game without Zubac, and they've been playing this whole entire postseason without Serge Ibaka, so they've been undersized as the playoffs have been going on, and of course they're missing Kawhi Leonard. But the Phoenix Suns only out-rebounded the Clippers by 1 rebound. DeAndre Ayton was being guarded by Nicholas Batum and Marcus Morris Sr. throughout the whole entire game, and that's all that Ayton had 10 rebounds in the game. That's not good enough. If you're gonna win the basketball game, you have to take advantage of the size difference. DeAndre Ayton is probably your second best player on the Phoenix Suns behind Devin Booker. And if everyone claims that he's turning into a superstar this year, 10 points is not enough. You have to demand the ball down low, and you have to be able to score in the paint where it matters the most, because that's how you're going to win the basketball game. If you're undersized at that position, take advantage of it. I don't know why the Phoenix Suns did not take advantage of the situation they were given to them in yesterday's game. They just let Chris Paul and Devin Booker play hero ball throughout the whole entire game, shoot crappy shots throughout the whole entire game. Yes, Devin Booker had 30 points. Patrick Beverley was not on him primarily. The Suns did a good job of switching up the defensive positions on picks, freeing up Devin Booker to play on different defenders. Chris Paul, yes, he can make great mid-rangers, but he can't. I mean, in my opinion, he's not that guy that's going to drop 30-something points in a clutch situation. Yeah, he's a great basketball player, has a high IQ. He knows how to lead an offense, but that's not something I'd expect to see from Chris Paul because that's not the stage of his career anymore. So yeah, DeAndre Ayton has to be that second guy, and if he cannot score double-digit points, yesterday he should have had 20 rebounds. The Clippers did a great job of swarming to the ball at every defensive rebound situation, and they made DeAndre Ayton completely a non-factor, and that's why the Clippers were able to win this game, in my opinion. Sebastian, what do you think about that?
No, like I said, they were doubling him every time a shot was put up. Batum or Marcus Morris would isolate him once, and then obviously they'd have a guard come set a big body on him. So it was pretty much just him getting blocked off consistently by the Clippers, and it's just all credit to them. They doubled Ayton when the ball was up, and then to get a PG or whatever other wingman was there to get that rebound. they would solidify that rebound and prevent Aiden from, being a threat on the offensive glass. But one thing that I want to give credit to, because obviously I've not slandered him, but I haven't spoke highly of him, is Reggie Jackson. And I don't know if it was last night or if it was last game that there was a little interview that was addressed when it comes to Reggie Jackson. He talked about how all the situations that he had been in when it comes to the NBA, it just made him lose the love and the touch of basketball. Coming to LA and being able to play for the Clippers organization, at least this team right now in particular, he's been able to get into that kid mentality of like, I'm just gonna play basketball, I'm gonna have fun, and I'm gonna do my thing and play basketball. Now, when it comes to what Blake said with the money thing, do the Clippers, the only way I see him getting paid crazy amount of contract is if he either stays here and they let Kawhi go or he goes elsewhere. And then there goes the question, are we going to see the Reggie Jackson that we know, because he's going to go to a horrible situation and then he's going to sit there, get paid fat money, but average 15, 11 points a game? Or is he going to stay, not take the money that he should be getting and just continue to have fun, enjoy the game of basketball, as well as obviously ultimately attempting to win and carry a team with PG along the side to a potential chip?
No, yeah, I think you got it all right there. And for the Suns to win this series, they lost the points in the paint battle by 26 last night. I think that's just the stat of the game. Montana said something about it. The Suns cannot expect to win this series if they're going to get outscored in the paint like that. And to only out-rebound the Clippers by 1, it just cannot happen. Oh, Montana, you're on mute.
Sorry. So we move on from the Clippers winning 116-102 over the Phoenix Suns, and we now move on to the next topic of today's show. Sebastian, have you been watching that Euro Cup in Europe going on?
Yes, sir. Yes, I have.
In my opinion, I like soccer and I follow it very loosely. I'm only really a huge fan around when the Euro Cup is going on, when the World Cup is going on, when the soccer teams are playing Olympics. I like watching the national teams play soccer more than I actually like watching teams like Barcelona, Real Madrid play. Even though those teams are really good, it's just not the same in my opinion. There's something about the national team stage of play that really gets the soccer juices flowing inside me. Yesterday, 2 great games in the Euro Cup. We had Spain and Croatia, I believe it was.
Yes.
Spain wins 5-3 in extra time, and we had France and Switzerland play in a thriller yesterday. Switzerland wins 5-4 in penalty kicks, and after playing 30 minutes of extra time in that game. Sebastian, what are your thoughts on these 2 games, and what kind of soccer are we seeing? Because I believe we're seeing a lot of obscure teams now left in this round of 16, not the teams that were favored to come into this. So is the guard changing in soccer?
So to go to what you first mentioned with the whole national teams being getting your juices flowing, to be honest with you, I think it's just the fact that basically like how what the Olympics is, you're getting the best of the best players being put together on a team from all around the countries that that they grew up in, obviously, and you're getting the best of the best rather than being split up amongst each other. And whether it's the Prem League, La Liga, whatever the case may be, it's all in one big, tournament. But these past games, bro, yesterday was beautiful, at least, from Spain's point of view. From them conceding that own goal, everyone was memeing them all over Twitter. Oh my God, Spain's going to lose this game after this, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Then to come back and somehow just keep that momentum, keep that composure, even after all those goals that were scored, to lead it into extra time. Shout out Morata for getting that lovely, freaking beautiful finish to put them up 4-3. And then obviously the lovely touch by Mikel, if that's how you pronounce his name, to put them up 5-3 and just solidify that goal and solidify that game for them in the extra time. With that Spain game, I was shocked that they, first of all, even conceded that own goal. I don't know what the crap is going on over there, but it is what it is. But for them to just keep composed and poised to win that game shows a lot of brilliance. Next, I was very shocked, stunned, every kind of feeling yesterday. I think you saw my reaction. I don't know if you were there, Montana, or not. But the fact that these world champs literally got not absolutely destroyed, but like they lost blows my mind. Like I'm still in disbelief at the fact that this happened, right? So I was watching the game and it looked like it was gone. The game was over with like 75 minutes left, 3-1. And I was like, all right, bro. Like Pogba had that world-class top bin shot. I don't know if you've seen it. And I was like, all right, bet. So I'm just going to look away and I'm just going to chill, keep doing my thing because I was on the game at the time. And so I was playing a little bit of some video games. And then out of nowhere, I look back and it's tied after a freaking, what's his, Gavranovic. I totally probably butchered that. But he scored the equalizer and I was completely shocked. I was like, at that point, we're going to go to extras. And then in extra time, literally, they had so many chances, both sides, whether it was France, whether it was freaking Swiss. They had both opportunities to win that game. And then it ultimately went to PKs. And then, bro, like, I don't – look, at the end of the day, like, yes, like a lot of people are going to blame Mbappe's miss. You know what I'm saying? Like, for them to lose because of him is absolutely tragic. But, like, at the same time, you got to just blame, like you had so many opportunities. The team has to take responsibility. It is what it is. It's like a curse for some reason. Every time a team wins the World Cup, that very next year in the Euros, they are first rounded and they lose in the knockout stages. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I guess it's just don't win the World Cup, I guess. But then at that point, it's like, bro, like you want to win the World Cup. The whole purpose is to win the World Cup. But I guess just don't play in the Euros or don't send your bet. I don't know what the case may be or what needs to be addressed, but there's like a little curse when it comes to once you win that World Cup. I don't know.
No, yeah. Going off that Spain-Croatia game, after Spain had that own goal, I didn't think they were going to win. Not because I thought Spain was the worst team, because they definitely were better than Croatia, but just because when you own goal yourself, that's just demeaning. When you go down 0-1 and it's an own goal, I mean, it's hard to come back from that. But credit to Spain because not only did they come back, but they had a full team effort. 5 goals from 5 different guys. You don't usually see that in soccer. I mean, that was crazy to me. I mean, they had everybody doing their thing. Shout out to Croatia for making it a good match because, yes, it was good the entire way through. I was entertained watching it. But moving on to the match that I more closely watched, the French going against the Swiss, I was entertained the entire way through. The Swiss got an early lead, but also missed on a couple opportunities that I thought was going to cost them the match, especially once the French gained their first lead and then added to their lead to make it a 3-1 lead. Like you said, Sebastian, I thought it was over at that point. I thought once the French took a 3-1 lead, I'm like, Switzerland's not coming back. But then they scored 2 late goals to tie it up and send it in extra minutes. And then it eventually went into the penalty kicks. And like you said, you hate to see that Mbappe is the one who missed it. Everyone was hating on him. But shout outs to that goalie, making that clutch save, sending the French home, giving Switzerland that huge dub. The broadcasters during that game were saying that for the Switzerland to win, they needed to come out and play aggressive. They needed to play confident. And I think they did all of those things. They came out and showed that even though France had a better overall team, they weren't afraid of them. They were going to come out there. They were going to do their thing. And they won the game ultimately. And I think that was one of the most entertaining soccer matches that I've seen all year. Shout out to Switzerland for getting that job done and overall just getting that dub, Montana.
So the game that I didn't really watch the Spain game all that closely, but the game that I did get to watch was the French-Switzerland game. In my opinion, that second half, the French, they played like the world beaters that we thought they were going to be. I don't know if they made different substitutions going into that second half, but they played really tough. They attacked the Swiss defense tremendously. They were able to get 3 goals in practically 30 minutes. And that's a pretty good feat to happen. But that 10-minute span after that happened where the Swiss they played super aggressive against the French defense. And they knew they had to tie this game up in order to send it to at least extra time. And once they tied it up and it did go to extra time, I felt like the Swiss had more opportunities to attack the goal than the French did. I feel like the French guys were just a little bit gassed. It looked like they were not communicating well enough on defense. They looked like they were just not willing to want to be there at the moment. When they got to the penalty kicks, the goalies, in my opinion, I felt like they were not trying. Obviously, Mbappe's miss at the end, I don't know how well of if he could have made that kick a little bit better or not, because it looked like it was an easy save for the goalie. There was a question of whether or not he was an illegal, if the goalie was in a legal set position to block the goal. But obviously, everything ended up okay in the end for the Switzerland. It's a huge upset, and we've seen upsets in years past in these tournaments. The Swiss played their hearts out. Now they get to go play Spain in the round of 16, and it's gonna be an interesting matchup, I think. The Spain team of this year is completely different from the Spain teams I knew it from the past. I'm not sure how great, Sebastian, you probably know more than I do in this situation. Is the Spain team good this year, or are they just, I don't know.
I mean, it just depends on how you look at it and how you want to address it. I think that Spain team is probably obviously not in the best that like I've ever seen in my entire life, but they're phenomenal. I think they're one of like, if not one of the most like not underrated, but a very strong team that can potentially, now that all of these front runners, big names, minus potentially maybe Belgium. I think Spain could potentially take this all the way, or Belgium, one of those two, to be in my opinion.
Is Belgium on the same side as Spain? I feel like they are.
They might be. So like the winner of that will ultimately probably take the reins.
Who is coming into this tournament? The French are the favorite, right?
I mean, they're the world champion, to be honest. So I'm not too sure exactly if they were the favorite.
I'm pretty sure they were the favorite.
I would assume they would be the favorite due to the fact that they're coming in and they're the World Cup champions. You know what I mean? So
yeah, of course. Yeah. So like even and Mbappe, where would you rank him on your top soccer players in the world?
I mean,
I feel like he might be a top 5 player now.
I mean, the kid is still a kid at the end of the day. What is he, like 23, 24? Let me see. Kylian Mbappe. Let me look this up because I really don't know how old he is.
That penalty kick that missed.
It is what it is. He's 22. He's 22 years old.
In my opinion, and the biggest stage of his young career at the moment, even though he did win the World Cup, that penalty kick at the end has got to hurt his psyche going forward. I think. Wouldn't you think?
I don't think it hurts his psyche because there was a lot of like videos of like him before the game, like right as they were walking out. There was a video caught of him just sitting there back against the wall, just not looking like he was really locked in. Like ultimately, I think it's something is wrong or something happened this tournament, either before this game or whatever the case may be, and it just affected him personally. And so, the fact of the matter is, it is what it is. They lost. And they just got to move on and deal with it. But Mbappe cannot be blamed, I feel like, for that miss in PKs, because ultimately they were huge favorites coming into this. They should have won in regular time. They should have never conceded those 2 goals late. And so, I mean, at that point, it is what it is. They lost. Move on, and just enjoy the rest of your little break, I guess, or go back to your teams respectfully.
I'm pretty sure the soccer is in the Olympics this year, right?
To be honest,
I would believe they would be. If I have to assume, I would. I'm not sure if the best players go to play for their national teams in the Olympics, but I would assume we would see Mbappe suit up for the French again in France for the Olympics. If I had to guess, they go for the gold medal this year. Even though the Olympics is a world tournament, pretty much it's like World Cup 2.0. So we'll see what happens, because I know there's a lot of South American teams that are really good, like Argentina, Brazil, that are going to be gunning for some of these European teams in the Olympics. So we shall see. We have this and the Copa America going on at the same time, so it's kind of crazy to see. Usually the Euro Cup is in every 4th year. It would have been last year, but because of COVID, we now have it this year. So there's that. So as we move on from this topic, we are now going to move on to the next topic of today's show, and the last main topic. The Milwaukee Bucks and the Atlanta Hawks are getting ready to play Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals. We have Trae Young diagnosed with a bone bruise in his ankle. He has a sprained right ankle as well. So if the Hawks don't have Trae Young, I do not see how there's any way possible that the Atlanta Hawks would beat the Milwaukee Bucks. I still don't even think, even with Trae Young tonight, I don't believe the Milwaukee Bucks let this one go. I believe they're about to pull that gentleman's sweep and take this out in 5 games, like I said at the beginning of this. Chris Middleton has started to turn his game around tremendously. He's playing like the 1A, to be honest, is 1B at the moment. Drew Holiday's playing great defense. The Bucks offensively are moving at a great pace. Defensively, they're the favorite, in my opinion, to win the championship this year. They have everything clicking on all cylinders. So the question to you guys is, do you believe the Hawks have a chance with a less than 100% Trae Young tonight if he does give it a go? Or if Trae Young doesn't play tonight, do we just see the Bucks completely crush the Atlanta Hawks in Game 4?
So before we get into this really quick, I just saw a report from an Eastern Conference executive that says he will be willing to give Talen Horton-Tucker a max contract in free agency. What do you guys think about that?
Is that a joke? Like,
no, that is an actual report coming from some sources.
Well, whoever team that person belongs to, they need to fire him, get rid of him. He should never be in the league again. This is not any – I mean, I am not trying to come at Talen Horton-Tucker at all. I think he's a very solid player. But a max contract, that's almost like Michael Jordan giving Nicholas Batum all of that money. What was that, like 5 years ago or whatever? Are you kidding me?
It's an Eastern Conference team. Maybe it is Michael Jordan.
Oh, I pray to God for his sake.
Maybe it's Michael Jordan's former team, the Chicago Bulls.
If the Bulls offer Talen Horton-Tucker a max contract, not only will I buy his jersey just to burn it, but then I am also going to be sending a lot of nice worded tweets to the Bulls front office wondering what in the hell are you doing? And I don't think it is the Bulls front office. They have a new front office. They're smart. But prayers go up to any Eastern Conference team that is going to offer him a max contract.
As well as obviously this came in, but we already kind of figured this. Yusuf Nurkic says he is leaving Portland if Damian Lillard as well decides to leave. And then his statement was, as far as I know, the man stays there. But if he goes, then I leave Portland as well. My opinion is that it would be stupid to let such a loyal man as Lillard go. And so, I mean, you guys can briefly discuss that, but we can talk about that in the debate topic. Up to you guys.
Yeah, we can just talk about that later.
All right. Now, after all of that, getting into the Bucks Hawks, do you want to go first, Blake?
Oh, yeah, sure. First, to go off of Montana's question, can the Hawks win without 100% Trae Young? Not a chance. I don't think they could win with 100% Trae Young, because I think the last two games the Bucks are proving that not only are they the better team, but that it might not even be close. This doesn't discredit what the Hawks have done at all, but the Bucks are showing that they can reach levels that I don't think the Hawks can. Not only have they turned it up offensively the last two games, but defensively they've held the Hawks to 91 in Game 2 and then 102 in the last game. In Game 3 also, Chris Middleton went out and did his thing, especially in that fourth quarter. I mean, to score 20 points in any quarter is a feat, and then to do it in the fourth quarter when your team needs you the most, shout out to Chris Middleton. The Bucks are a scary team when he does this, because Giannis has proven this playoffs that he can consistently go out and get around 30 and 10 every game. So when Middleton comes out and does this, they are a tough team to beat. The Hawks have had a great run, but I think they've ran into a Bucks team that has not only been there before, but I think are finally ready to make that finals push. This is the best I've seen this Bucks team play since Giannis has been in that MVP talks, and I think that this team is fine. This team has turned it on at the right time. Not only have they beaten the Nets, now they're going to beat the Hawks, like Montana said, in 5, and I think they might be the winner of the finals this year. I don't think it matters who comes out of the West. I think that right now the Bucks are playing the best basketball out of any team that is left in the playoffs, and I think the Bucks should be the favorite to win the finals out of the 4 teams that are left. Sebastian?
Before I get into this, did y'all see this man Dwight Howard was at that game? Now, how do you lose a Game 7 to the Atlanta Hawks and come back home? Because I get he's from Atlanta. But, like, bro, how do you go watch the team that just beat you to take you out of the playoffs and just go watch the game? I don't know how he did that, as well as Cam Newton was in that audience of that game. But that's a whole different conversation in itself. I know they're both from Atlanta. It's just very weird to me to see that happening. Now, like I always say, you can't expect to win games if you win the first 3 quarters. You know what I'm saying? You have to close out strong. The Hawks cannot allow the Bucks to have that 25-7 run that they did to close out the game. Ultimately, hats off to Chris Middleton. He performed, But at the end of the day, the Hawks had the lead with 7 minutes and 12 seconds left. And to just let the Bucks have it like that absolutely just makes no sense. Trae Young ultimately getting hurt, caused the Hawks to lose momentum. And then at that point, when Trae Young came back, from the locker room and they put him back in the game, I felt like it was just a little too late because at that point, Chris Middleton was just in his bag, in his Duffy. The man had 20 points in that quarter. Mind you, he had 20 points in that quarter, and I'm pretty sure Atlanta had 17 as a team. So to outscore the Hawks by himself is absolutely ridiculous in itself. But credit to him. He hit the shots down the stretch that he needed to, and ultimately the Hawks couldn't hit a single shot. And so Shaq said it perfectly. Like the other night, the Hawks played great 42 minutes of basketball. But in order to beat a team like the Bucks, they have to play a great 45 to 46 minutes. And honestly, they were close, but the Bucks clearly wanted that one just a bit more. Credit to the Bucks. They've obviously been getting their production from their second player in Chris Middleton. He's hooping like we all knew he could. Obviously, I was ranting and doing all that, saying he's ass and whatever the case may be. But, he's playing great basketball as of late. Giannis as well. As much as I don't like this Bucks team, it's kind of hard to, root against them with a very impressive postseason run by Giannis that he's clearly just, he's on a mission. He's on a mission. As much as I don't want to say it, I kind of do agree with your statement of potentially them winning the chip this year, and I'm not too happy about that, but it is what it is. I'm still obviously rooting for the Hawks because of the hate that I have for the Bucks. But this kind of reminds me like the Sixers series. You know what I'm saying? It just reminds me all over again. The Hawks won game 1, then got blown out game 2 and 3, and then came back, won 4-5, lost in 6, and then won in 7. Now, I don't know exactly if we can compare the Sixers to the Bucks because I feel like the Bucks are ultimately the better team. But it just comes down to Chris Middleton. Are you going to get his performance like that every single night? Or is he going to be the inconsistent player that we've seen as of late? And, is he going to come out slow? And then at that point, it's an easy Hawks win if and only if they continue to live and die by that 3. Because if they get hot in the fourth quarter, to say the least, that game is completely over. You know what I'm saying? That team, the Atlanta Hawks, as we've seen, lives and dies by that 3. So ultimately, if in that fourth quarter they hit their shots, I think it's a completely different ballgame and the Hawks win. Now, to answer your question about Trae Young, I don't know, bro. I think he's still going to battle through it and give everything he has because you've made it so far. You're that close to an NBA Finals appearance. I don't see why he just, slows down.
Alrighty, so I have the Bucks winning. Sebastian, you said who you have winning today?
Biased, Hawks, unbiased, straight NBA fan, Bucks.
And Blake, who do you got?
I've got the Bucks winning in a close game tonight. I think that Trae Young's going to come out. I think he's going to have a solid game, but I think ultimately that ankle's going to hold him back a little bit. He's not going to be able to run around the floor as he usually does, and I think the Bucks are going to take advantage of that and win tonight.
Alrighty, so we have our predictions for the Milwaukee Bucks and Atlanta Hawks Game 4 in the Eastern Conference Finals. So that is it for the main topics of today's show, and we now move on to the last topic, our debate topic, our new segment that we are doing now in each and every show. Our today's topic is, do we think that Damian Lillard should stay in Portland or look for opportunities elsewhere? I am not going to go first because I already know where I feel and stand on this position. So, Sebastian and Blake, which one of you guys wants to kick this thing off?
If no one wants to, I can surely kick this off. First off, it's not a secret. Dame's my guy. I'm a Bulls fan at heart, but in terms of my favorite player, it's been Dame for a long time. And now, whether or not do I think he should stay in Portland, I think he should. I think you've got to give Chauncey Billups a chance. At least see what the guy's got. At least see what he can do, what he can bring to the team. See what his ideas are. Go to the front office, see what their ideas are, because I think they can make this team into a contender. I don't think the Blazers are that far off from the rest of these teams that we see in the conference finals right now. In terms of the Suns, the Clippers, the Bucks, and the Hawks, I don't think that Blazers team is too far off talent-wise from those teams. I mean, obviously, you've got a player like Dame who's a superstar and can compete with anyone and drop 40 on every given night because he is just He can score from anywhere on the court. Other than Kevin Durant, him and Steph Curry, I should say as well. I think those are the three best scorers we've got in the league today. KD, Steph, and Dame in no particular order. And I think with that being said, CJ McCollum's your second best player. He has shown, and he's had spurts where he's shown to be that second best player, but he's also been inconsistent like we've seen Chris Middleton. I think Chris Middleton and CJ McCollum, even though they're a different type of player, they're still an easily to be compared to because they're both inconsistent number twos who can go out there and some nights drop 30 to 40 and then other nights shoot 2 of 11 from the field, have like no points, and then see your team lose. I think if I'm the Blazers and I'm Damian Lillard, I say, guess what? Chauncey Billups has worked magic for Paul George. I said that earlier in the show. Let's see what he can do for this team. Let's see what Chauncey Billups can do to improve this team. And I think the Blazers have – I mean, Norman Powell is a good player. He's a great player. He can play defense. He can score the basketball. He was a perfect trade asset for the Blazers. And I think with a full season with this team, as long as they stay healthy, I mean, you've got Melo coming off the bench, Zach Collins, who I hate Zach Collins. He got injured this year. People are using that as an excuse. I think they should get rid of him, cut their ties. But I think between Yusuf Nurkic, Damian Lillard, and CJ McCollum and Norman Powell, that's a solid 4 players right there, especially with Melo coming off the bench. I think if they add a few players, you could see maybe if they trade CJ McCollum, the question is, what can they get in return? Who can they get that makes their team better if they trade CJ McCollum? And I think that's a question that Sebastian can try to answer when I'm done here. But for me, I don't think there is a player that if you trade CJ McCollum, I don't think you can get a better player without giving up too much. And I think that this Blazers team, how they are brought about right now, can make a finals push. They just need to do a little things different. I'm going to make the comparison to the Warriors when Mark Jackson was there. Mark Jackson should not have been fired. He got fired under pretenses that weren't right. But guess what? He couldn't get that Warriors team over the hump. They bring in Steve Kerr. What does Steve Kerr do? He gets them over the hump. He was a young player. He was a guard that has proven to win as a player. And now the Blazers are bringing in a similar coach like what the Warriors did for Steve Kerr in Chauncey Billups. Chauncey Billups won as a player. He's a guard. He was a great guard that knows what he's doing. He's proven to know what he's talking about as being the assistant coach for the Clippers. Now, can Chauncey Billups be that Steve Kerr to the Blazers? Can he bring them over the hump? And I think the answer is yes. I think obviously he needs to prove that, but I think Billups can be that secret coach that the Blazers have been looking for. Montana said it earlier. Terry Stotts is a good coach, and I don't think all of the hate should be put on him for why the Blazers haven't been winning. But I don't think Terry Stotts was the coach to get them over the hump. And I think Chauncey Billups is, and that is why I think Dame should at least stay for a year. I'm not saying that he's going to end up staying long-term, but I think Dame should at least stay for the next upcoming year, see what Chauncey's about, see what this team can do, and see what their ceiling is when Chauncey Billups is their coach. Sebastian?
No, I agree. I have here, I think that they can win in Portland. In my eyes, I think one move needs to be made. Clearly, yes, like you mentioned with CJ, it's a toss-up. Either move CJ, you know what I'm saying? Because honestly, in my opinion, I don't know who the hell they would or could even trade for. Like you said, I'm clueless, but I would just go see what that trade value is like. Maybe add a Norman Powell, see, potentially a blockbuster type of deal, or CJ, Robert Covington, and a couple picks. But it just depends on the worth and the value ultimately from CJ. If it's worth it, I say why not give it a shot. But at the end of the day, I trust and believe in Chauncey Billups. His ability to develop players, clearly, even as an assistant coach, is going to be huge, as well as obviously being a former player. I think that has that impact on these players, and they're going to be like, okay, I remember your game. I looked up to you, whatever they want to use, and they're going to trust him, believe in him, and ride with it. I completely agree. I think Dame needs to stay. But ultimately, it just, in my eyes, it's just a matter of who's finna be in a Trailblazers uni starting next year. That's the biggest question. Who is going to be in a Portland Trailblazers uniform? Once we find that out, I think ultimately I'll agree and say that, They can make a deep push. I don't think Dame should leave, but whatever moves they make in the offseason to help him, because like you guys said, personnel is huge. I don't think he's had the team around him until this year. I think this team is solid enough to make a deep push. But Chauncey, I feel like I really didn't think about that comparison, that Warriors comparison. That was actually crazy smart, Blake. I'm going to give that to you. That was actually now that you say it, I see it. And so hopefully Dame stays, believes in it, trusts the process, quote unquote, and we'll see what happens next year. Montana?
You guys put it perfectly as to why Damian Lillard should not be in a Portland Trail Blazers uniform next year. CJ McCollum is the problem here for the Portland Trail Blazers. No one's going to want to trade for CJ McCollum. What kind of let's look at the NBA right now. There's only maybe about two superstars that are maybe available for a trade, and that is Bradley Beal and Damian Lillard. That could be the only two superstars we see in a potential trade market scenario here. And I don't see the Washington Wizards trading Bradley Beal for CJ McCollum. Maybe another guy we could talk about is Ben Simmons, but would Ben Simmons really fit on a Portland Trail Blazers team? I don't know, and I don't know if Portland would be – I don't know if Philly would be smart enough to trade Ben Simmons for someone like CJ McCollum. If you're going to trade Ben Simmons, you better get something way more better than CJ McCollum. So I could see Damian Lillard is also getting up there in age. Do we see him wanting to stick it out in Portland again for another season, potentially, where they do not make the Western Conference Finals and do not make the NBA Finals just because I believe the Western Conference is only getting stronger next year? I believe teams like the Denver Nuggets, who are about to get Jamal Murray back, or who is going to have Michael Porter Jr., who is going to have another seasoned year on his resume, who's probably going to play at a much more higher level than even he did this year, with Nikola Jokic, the MVP on the Denver Nuggets, the team that Portland, by the way, cannot get past for some unbeknownst reason. The Phoenix Suns, obviously, they're only going to get better. Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton are still relatively young players.
Hold on, let me pause you real quick. You said the Blazers can't get by the Nuggets because they lost to them in one series, even though the last time they played them in the series, they won.
Yeah, but this time it's different.
Oh, it's different now. I got you. Go on.
All right. So besides that, the Los Angeles Lakers, I still believe that they're the best team in the Western Conference when they're healthy, when Anthony Davis is healthy, when LeBron James is healthy.
Yo, hot
the
take
Lakers
alert.
are the number one team in the West. In my opinion, they still want a championship, but a year removed from winning a championship. They're going to get a lot more rest going in this year. None of their guys are playing in the Olympics. I believe they're going to make a big splash move to further bolster that squad, even though a lot of people are going to be like, how can they do that? Kyle Kuzma's not good enough of a trade piece to get a star player. Somehow or some way, the Lakers are going to figure it out. The Pelicans, I believe, are going to get better. There's a lot of teams. The Warriors with Klay Thompson coming back next season. They're going to be better than I believe they're going to be better than the Blazers next year, especially with having the 7th and the 14th overall pick. Who knows what they're going to do to swing that in a trade? So, in my opinion, the best option for Damian Lillard is to get out of Portland as fast as he can and move on to the Eastern Conference, because that's where all these players obviously are going to have to go if you want to win. Because, yes, you could look at Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and James Harden being in the East, but we learned this year that, like I said, when this super team formed, that two or one of these players was going to get injured in the playoffs, and look, I was right. James Harden, Kyrie Irving could not stay healthy because they are breakable players. So the Brooklyn Nets, I don't believe, are that formidable as we think they are, just because of Kevin Durant, because obviously the Milwaukee Bucks took him out. The Milwaukee Bucks are obviously, in my opinion, the best team in the Eastern Conference at the moment. Obviously, they're going to win the champion. They're going to win the championship this year, Sebastian. You can huff and puff all you want. The Phoenix Suns are not going to get past the Milwaukee Bucks. The Milwaukee Bucks are the best team in the East, and they're going to win the championship this year, or this year's Toronto Raptors. Obviously, there's a lot of questions that Damian Lillard could. There's a lot of teams, in my opinion, Damian Lillard would work better on than the Portland Trail Blazers. I think he would work better on the New York Knicks.
Wait. So you're telling me that they're going to win a ring in New York? Right now,
Yeah,
right now,
they
right
No
now.
chance. No chance.
if they add a star to that team, they're going to be a lot
Oh,
better than you think they
Okay,
are.
but the Blazers with Damian Lillard are better than the Knicks with Damian Lillard. Because then think about this. If the Knicks trade for Damian Lillard, they're going to have to give up 2 or 3 players on that team along with first-round picks. So if you're the Knicks, who are you giving up?
I was looking at trade
Boston.
things online. So
I
if
think if you
listen,
team up Damian Lillard and Jason Tatum, that's already a better team than the Portland Trailblazers that Damian Lillard is
No,
on.
because the Trailblazers, put it this way. If you're trading
Oh.
for Dame, you're going to have to give up, if we're talking about the Boston Celtics, you're going to have to give up Jaylen Brown, say goodbye to him. And obviously, Dame's a better player, but that's not all you're giving up. You're also going to have to give up a first-round pick at least, and then another star player. So
Marcus Smart, you
therefore,
got to give it both Marcus and Jaylen Brown.
so you lose 2 of your starters for Damian Lillard, and that's probably not all you're going to have to give up. Let's be honest here. The Blazers aren't just going to ship them off for nothing. I think the Blazers, put it this way, no team other than maybe the Heat, and I know you guys are Heat fans, so I'm going to throw it out there. I think the
Nah.
Heat are the only team in the East who can give up certain players and be better than the Blazers. I don't think anyone else has a chance, but that just determines – that's also – the question is, what did the Blazers want in return for Damian Lillard if they were to trade him? Because we haven't really seen since Kawhi Leonard or maybe Paul George what the market is for a superstar player like that to be traded. We saw James Harden also, but I think Dame right now is in position to get more than in trade value than any of those players got. And I think if you were to trade for Damian Lillard, you're going to have to give up 2 of your best players at least, plus another role player, plus 2 first rounders. So you're going to be giving up 3 to 4 players plus a couple first rounders. Your team might be slightly better off with Dame, but they're not going to be better than what the Blazers could do with Dame. Because not only do the Blazers have a solid starting lineup, say what you want about CJ McCollum, he's still a solid number 2.
Yeah.
He's still a top 10 number 2 in the league. Now, whether or not they can win with him being their second best player, that's still to be seen. But let's not forget that they were in the Western Conference Finals, what was that, 3 years ago? Yeah, I think 3 years ago they were in the Western Conference Finals with a worse team, in my opinion, than what they have now. Yes, they lost to the Denver Nuggets this year, but I think they had just an off series, and it happens. Like I said, I mentioned the Golden State Warriors being a good comparison to this team. Golden State in 2014 with Mark Jackson made the playoffs and then lost to a team that they were arguably better than. We could be seeing the same thing with the Blazers. They lost to a team in the Denver Nuggets that they were arguably better than. That was just because no Jamal Murray. But even with Jamal Murray, the Blazers and Nuggets are a pretty even matched team. The Blazers should have beaten the Nuggets this year, like the Warriors should have won their series in 2014. Now you get a new young coach who's proven that he can help players out like he has with Paul George, who's proven that they know what they're doing as a basketball, not only as a basketball mind, but also they're able to spread their knowledge as a coach. For the Blazers to trade Damian Lillard, you'd have to blow up the entire team, in my opinion. I think if you're trading Damian Lillard, you're losing Nurkic. You probably are going to ship off Melo. You're going to ship off CJ McCollum. So are the Blazers ready to fully restart that team? And I think the answer is no. You got to give this team another year. You've got to give them a shot with Chauncey Billups. You don't fire Terry Stotts and hire Chauncey Billups because you think you're blowing up the team. No, you do that because you think this is a coaching change that can maybe get us over the hump. And yes, I think that they're another piece away from really making that run, but they can add someone in the offseason that they don't necessarily have to trade for anyone. They can add an offseason player that can make this team better and maybe see that finals push. I know, Montana, you're saying that CJ McCollum can't get it done. This Blazers team isn't good enough. Well, I disagree. I think that this Blazers team is good enough. They've proven it in the past with worse teams. Now they just have to get over that hump, like I said, because it's hard. It's hard for teams to get over that hump to push for the finals, and sometimes it is a coaching change. And I think if I'm Damian Lillard, I've got to accept I've been here long enough. I've said how loyal I am. I've proven to be loyal to this Blazers team. Why wouldn't I stay another year? I think that's the real question. Why wouldn't he?
So let me say something really quick. I was looking at like some trade possibilities if Dame did in fact want out or whatever the case may be. The New York Knicks being one. The Knicks would have to give up Obi Toppin, Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett, and 3 or potentially 4 first-round picks. That's just what I'm looking at on these like sources or whatnot. You know what I'm saying? The first one, obviously, or not first, but one of them, obviously, again, Boston Celtics. So you're giving up Al Horford, Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, Romeo Langford, Peyton Pritchard, and 4 first-round picks as well as a second-round pick. And I'm just giving you trade options.
All right, so
Go ahead.
So here is why these trade mock-ups make zero sense to me. Is we look at the James Harden trade last year. Look what the Rockets got in return for James Harden. They legitimately got nothing in return for James Harden. They got maybe 5 first-round picks from the Brooklyn Nets. The biggest trade piece in that trade was Karis LeVert, and he didn't even go to the Houston Rockets. He ended up going to the Indiana Pacers in the 3-team trade. Yeah, you could say that Victor Oladipo, we got him back in the trade, but the Rockets had zero intention of keeping him, obviously. They traded him to the Miami Heat halfway through the season. So that the whole, you need to give up 5 players and 5 first-round picks to get a superstar player is ridiculously dumb. We even looked at trades. We even looked at trades for Russell Westbrook. Okay, yeah, you can match salary with a bunch of ridiculously bad players. We look at Paul George, Russell Westbrook. You traded both of those guys for a bunch of scrubs and draft picks. Obviously, teams only care about the draft picks. They don't really care about what kind of players they're getting back in return.
But Montana, we're comparing now. You're going to compare Russell Westbrook to Damian Lillard, one of the most loyal players of your franchise, on top of one of the players that not only does the fan base love. At that time, Russell, everyone was like, yo, timeout. Like, Russell, we don't know if we still want him here. Like, I think it might just be nice to move on. Bro, you're talking about one of the most
committed to the Oklahoma City Thunder for as long as he could have been committed.
Yeah,
to
as long as
we're talking about the Rockets trade, though.
Yeah, okay, whatever. That's beside the point. Now, for the next trade, the freaking Dallas Mavericks, Porzingis, Josh Richardson, Jalen Brunson, and 3 first-round picks and 3 second-round picks just for Damian Lillard alone. Maybe even Covington in there, but you have to match salary. You know what I'm saying? So now it comes down to, what are you willing to give up in the sense of, and here's a Miami Heat thing. I don't know how I feel about this, Montana. You can give your little input on it. Goran Dragic, Kendrick Nunn, Tyler Hero, KZ Okpala, Precious Achua, 2 second-round picks and 3 first-round picks for Damian Lillard alone.
First of all, that trade would never happen.
Why not? That's the only way that it matches.
Too much just to give up.
It matches. It matches contracts.
That's why teams get involved with 3-team trades. We've never seen most trades that happen.
And we can talk about we could talk about a potential 3-team trade if you would like, and that's where it comes down to the San Antonio Spurs. And forget all of that. All right, if he does get traded, why would he go? Because he made that tweet back in the day. I think it was 2017 or whatever the case may be. He made that tweet. If I do leave Portland, what's up Utah? What's up LA Lakers? So what ideally would the Jazz have to give up ultimately to get Damian Lillard? Now here comes your get rid of bum players per se. Mike Conley, Jordan Clarkson, Royce O'Neal, Miye Onyi, 4 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks.
Do that trade in a heartbeat.
I mean, I think.
Okay, but what are the Jazz left with? You're left with Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, and Damian Lillard.
Solid. You have Gobert, and you still have Bogdanovich on the squad. You're still going to be able to sign players in free agency.
Name 2 players off that bench left.
Nobody.
Well,
nobody.
I can't think of anyone on that Utah Jazz
exactly
besides Jordan Clarkson.
All right.
Damian Lillard is better than half those players that were mentioned in that trade.
Okay, and here's what the Lakers will have to give up ultimately in order to acquire Damian Lillard: Mark Gasol, KCP, Montrezl Harrell, Kyle Kuzma, Talon Horton Tucker. 1, 2, 3 first-round picks, 4 second-round picks, and of course, ultimately Dennis Schroeder. That's what you would have to give up in order to get Damian Lillard alone.
Okay, I would do that trade immediately if I got the chance to pair Damian Lillard, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis for even 3 years left on LeBron's contract, plus another couple years after that with Anthony Davis and Damian Lillard as your 2 centerpieces. Of course, I would do that.
So who are you going to match? Go ahead.
Some of these trades might be a little blown out of proportion because if Damian Lillard gets traded, it's going to be his doing. He's going to request a trade. Portland's not just going to go out there and trade him for no reason, because if Dame wants to stay, he's staying. I mean, that's just what it boils down to. But I think you're still going to have to give up quite a lot. And I think that if we're being honest here, if we're looking at all these mock trades, I mean, we might as well look at the Bulls as well, because guess what?
Here we go.
Why wouldn't we? I mean, if we're talking about big market teams, the Bulls have the pieces. They have the first round picks. They have the cap space for him. And I think the Bulls have the perfect young pieces / veteran pieces that the Blazers would be looking for if they were to trade Damian Lillard. We can give them that point guard substitution in Kobe White. We can give them. I would hate to give up Patrick Williams, but we could give up Patrick Williams because he has some of the most potential out of anyone in that draft class from a year ago. Then you can also give up Lauri Markkanen. You can give up Thad Young, a great veteran piece, who the Blazers will then trade for a contender and get something more for him, because there's no reason in keeping Thad Young if you're not trying to contend or at least make the playoffs. You give up 3 first-rounders. Why not come down to Chicago? I mean, Zach LaVine and Damian Lillard would be the best 1-2 punch in the guard position in the NBA. No one would touch those 2 guards. That would be the best backcourt in the NBA today, without a question. And then you pair him with Vucevic as well. That's a big 3 right there. That's scary.
All right, fine. If you want to talk about going back to the East, here we go with a 3-team trade that, of course, Montana, 3-team trade, correct, Montana, you mentioned? The 76ers and the San Antonio Spurs. The Trailblazers would get DeJounte Murray, Shake Milton, Tyrese Maxey, 1, 2, 3, 4 first-round picks, a second-round pick. The Sixers alone would get Damian Lillard, and the Spurs would get Ben Simmons, Paul Reed, and a second-round pick.
Why would the Spurs do that? The Spurs would never do that trade, though. They're not giving up DeJounte Murray plus some for Ben Simmons. No chance. I'm keeping.
Who knows? Craig Popovich might transform Ben Simmons into a superstar player.
Yeah, but it's not going to happen because DeJounte Murray, I think, is already going to be a better player than Ben Simmons.
Love DeJounte Murray.
Maybe that's a hot take, but I think DeJounte Murray he's got a bag, bro. I love watching him play, and he's playing for Pop. I think right now, if I'm the Spurs, no chance I'm trading DeJounte Murray for Ben Simmons. No chance.
Let him know, bro. Let him know. But I do love DeJounte.
I don't even think the Miami Heat are going to trade for Damian Lillard anyway, because I believe Kawhi Leonard's coming down to Miami this summer. So
let Montana. Oh wait, but time out. Hold on. If we're going to talk about Kawhi Leonard, Montana, why do we still not know any information about Kawhi Leonard's knee?
Because that Clippers medical staff is trash, bro.
No, I thought we did. I thought it was a sprained knee. I thought it was just a sprain.
No, it's not a sprain. No, I told Montana from the very first day that Skip Bayless said it. It's an ACL injury that will require surgery. The reason the medical staff does not know anything and we're not getting information is because Kawhi, it's a similar situation with San Antonio. Kawhi has beef with the medical staff. They didn't catch it early. They diagnosed him wrong. And now he's got to deal with a potential, maybe small or partial tear, whatever the case may be, in his ACL. He has to get surgery. And now that man is going to be leaving, ultimately joining the greatest team in the Miami Heat organization. You know what I'm saying? And then, you know what I mean? That's why Kawhi is not sitting down there on the court talking to these people. He's sitting up there because he's being distant. So the medical staff have absolutely no idea what's going on because he's getting second, third options from these other teams, or from not teams, but from these other, doctors. So, I told you from that beginning, Skip Bayless has the insight on Kawhi Leonard. Boom. That's why he's not playing. That's why he's done for the rest of the year, and ultimately barely will make next year because of this tear.
All right. Well, back to the debate on hand. I think we have said what we needed to say. Obviously, Me and Sebastian have our opinion, which is Damian Lillard stays. Montana says he needs to hit the road as fast as he can and never look back. Whether or not we see Damian Lillard gets traded, I think it happens before the season. I don't think we see a midseason Damian Lillard trade. I think, at least in my opinion, I think if he's gone, it's going to be in the offseason, because I think if he stays during the season, he's going to give Chauncey a full year. There's no way. I don't think Dame is going to be one of those players that wants to get traded halfway through the year. And I don't think he pulls the James Harden where he puts on 10 shirts to make him look fat, goes to the strip club every night to make sure, doesn't show up to practice, doesn't want to play in the games. I don't see Dame doing that. I think if we see Dame get traded, it's going to be in the off season. And if he doesn't get traded in the summer, then we're going to see Dame play at least another full year with the Blazers.
All right. I guess
Well,
what happened, Sebastian?
But it has nothing to do with NBA talk. But I just want to toss this in there really quick, because it's my squad. Corey, what's his name? Corey Dickinson or Dickerson, whatever the crap, just got traded, by the way, to the Blue Jays. You guys can deliberate that for a little bit. We just shipped his ass out of here. I'm very disappointed, but yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sure you're disappointed, Sebastian. Sebastian, you're acting all smart over there about baseball.
What you mean, bro? Bro, what you talking about? Go ahead.
Corey Dickerson is not a big enough player to talk about. But okay.
Yes, he is, bro. Stop disrespecting.
He's a solid player. Corey Dickerson is a very solid player.
He's going to make a very big impact on the Blue Jays, bro. Watch your mouth.
Yeah, relax. Very big impact. Relax.
Yes, he will. Watch.
Okay. I think that's going to be it for today's show. Before Sebastian says something else he regrets saying.
What do you mean? I don't regret saying that.
All right. So if you guys haven't already on the audio forum, follow Apple Podcasts, Spotify, give us a rating, give us a review. If you guys are watching on the YouTube playback later in the show, subscribe to the channel, like the video. It really helps with the YouTube algorithms, helps us get seen by more people. Leave a comment in the comment section. For God knows unbeknownst reasons, the YouTube algorithm likes for people to comment in the comment section. So comments in the comment section. It doesn't even have to be what you feel about the show. It could be about anything. Just comment something. I don't care. So besides that, I'm Montana, aka Wildcard. You guys can find me on Twitter, Instagram at Wildcard Movies. Sebastian, where can they find you?
Rabbit FL everywhere.
And Blake?
They can find me at Blake Spillers everywhere.
All right, that's going to be it for Unspoken Rules number 22. We will see you guys tomorrow. Peace.
Yep. Have a good one.